Okay, we're starting a new project,
pattern.
a baby quilt.
And then you work around your picture like Mother Goose or Pooh Bear. Here's the sheep to stitch around, and he's got his own square. So what you do is find matching strips to go around him, and then we'll piece him together.
Darling print I found. I added this strip to all sides to give it some emphasis. And under this, we'll be putting our baddings. Done putting this piece together, then you have to get the liner. This might be too small, but if it is, you just add pieces around it. We did the batting step, and that's to lay your fabric down. I just put it on the floor because it's big, and make sure everything is smooth. You put it face down, then you put your batting layer. There's the batting layer. It's a low loft. It's thin. You don't need a whole lot in a baby blanket, although this is a large blanket. But then you put your layer, the liner, and mine was a little short, so I added a piece, a couple pieces actually. You put the pins in on the top now, because you're going to be working on these little squares. You want to work up all the detail as much as you can, actually, because it makes the square pop. Not only that, by doing all this reinforcing, you're making a blanket that's going to last a while. Here we are again with the worked up baby quilt, baby blanket, and I thought you'd enjoy seeing some of these darling squares, the life that they have once they're worked up. They're adorable. So this is the end of working up the front, and you can see this face really pops. This jar of honey does. And Pooh Bear, he really has some cute expressions in a poofy shirt. So to show you how much I reinforced, take a look right there. But this quilt is gonna last, I guarantee it. I went a little crazy on this one, but it's you can see where all the stitching is, because it poofs on the back as well as the front. So let's get this done and put the back on. We've worked up the front of the baby quilt. That's been worked up, and I ended up having to add an extra piece here to the edges, so I had to add a batting piece. And I just wanted to show you real quick. You just do a whip stitch and catch the seam of the bottom without touching the front while you sew, and then get this laid in place roughly, because when you put the back on, of course, that's going to hold it. And I think I'm getting the shadow on here, but I just wanted to give you an idea Doesn't have to be neat, just has to catch the edges to the seam allowance underneath so that this doesn't fall apart. And then of course you're going to work on more reinforcement after we put the back on. Then, after we get all the detail worked up, we're going to put the back on, and carefully in a few places you'll be stitching that to hold the blanket together. And I've added some trim on this back for a little interest. Not only that, it makes a good hardy blanket, but it also matches the trim I've added to the piece. So let's work up these squares and go to the next step. Up to the time where we put the back, sew the back to the front. And I thought this was pretty important to show you because it's a place that I've screwed up here. You can see the right sides are together. And rather than sew the blanket together at the top first, you're better off sewing the sides together. That way, if they're not completely matched up, you can alter each side to fit. And so the next step, we sew the top, we trim a little bit, and come down to the bottom, match these up and sew it down, and then we're going to be reinforcing, trying to reinforce these strips, which they might match up, I don't know yet. And you're going to reinforce some of the straight lines on the back so everything holds together nicely. Well, hello everybody, and I thought you'd like to see the finished baby quilt after the back has been added and we've worked up the edges. On the back, you'll notice there are 12 squares. That's because there's 12 squares you reinforced on the front. The outline of the squares to reinforce the back to the front without being too crazy. You don't need a lot on the back. You just need to get it attached. And some people may do these squares by reinforce and reinforce. The blanket's going to last a very long time. Pooh Bear baby quilt. It's kind of a large blanket, but it is a blanket nonetheless. And you remember that we worked up the squares to make them poof, like this little worm eating a leaf. Yellow in the vines, green around, and on, pink around the ears, blue in the barrel. So there's a lot of ways to work up a blanket. In this case, we added strips and a low loft batting. Then we added the back. The Pooh Bear quilt. Now, where's Pooh Bear? Here he is. So remember, don't add too much detail to the back because it's got to match on the front. You want to have matching threads. Those are hard to get, especially when you got another color on the front.